Good morning, and welcome to our first episode of the Enneagram Mom interview series by Ellison Enterprises. I am Whitney Ellison, and I'm so excited to have you here, and we've got a great episode today. First, though, a quick introduction of this series. The Enneagram is a wonderful tool for developing empathy and self-awareness. And as moms, we are all in this together. The Enneagram series, every mom that's in this series is going to say something that somebody will be able to relate to. And that's my goal, is to find comfort, to have moms find comfort in knowing that they are not alone. And also to share some tips and tricks from different Enneagram types that could be universal and awesome things that are going to help you succeed in your day-to-day. So with that being said, I would like to thank Grateful Grams, who is sponsoring our first 3 episodes. And Grateful Grams is a vegan graham cookie. These are delicious. You can order them online. They're also available in regional Kroger's and Whole Foods. And my 11-month-old baby absolutely loves them. They're baby friendly. And then, of course, I had to with my breakfast today. So for the viewers that are watching, there is a giveaway. So if you comment as you're watching, there will be a random drawing, and whoever gets picked will get a free bag of Grateful Grams. And if you stay tuned till the end, you'll receive a discount code for 15% off your order on gratefulgrams.com. Now, on to our guest this morning. This morning we have Jeannette Gute, who lives in Olympia, Washington. She is the mother of 3 beautiful children. And one of them is 6 years old and actually shares the same birthday and year as my son. One of them is 3 years old, and one of them is 9 months old. So much like me, Jeannette is at the front lines with an infant during a pandemic and trying to work. So with that being said, I'm going to bring Jeannette in and we will get started. She's connecting now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? I can see you and you look beautiful.
Oh, I can't see myself, which might be a good thing, but at least then I'm focusing on that.
Well, the first thing I would like to do is thank you for getting up early with an infant in your house and 2 other small children, because you are in Pacific time zone, which means it's 6 a.m. your time. So I just want to acknowledge that and say thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Yeah, I usually work right now. I just don't put myself together for my telework. We're like all completely remote, no video, so I don't have to look any particular way.
That's the great thing about working from home is yoga pants and
Yeah.
ponytails. So we go way back. I think we've known each other since 2005. So but I know that the audience is just being introduced to you. So can you tell me a little about yourself?
Yeah, I grew up, I was born in Omaha, but I feel like I grew up here in Olympia, Tumwater area, where I am now. I went to college up in Seattle and then moved to Cincinnati for law school back in 2005. Loved the area, never thought I would leave, but alas, home called me back. And I guess it was 2011. I can't believe I've been back here for 9 years already.
Crazy.
Almost 10. And that is ultimately where I met my partner, and we've had 3 kids since then. So I would say it was a good move for me. Now I don't know how much would get into, I guess this does get into kind of the first question. And now I work for the state of Washington at Department of Revenue doing, I manage tax law and policy, which I was going to say sounds more interesting than it is, but it actually doesn't sound that interesting. So I guess it sounds about right.
What are you talking about? Taxes sound fascinating. We all love taxes.
It's probably why I watch so much television, so I have something to talk to people about. when they ask what you do, I can just say I watch a lot of television. What are you watching these days? And so honestly, I do think I missed a calling probably to do some sort of, writing for TV or reading and editing scripts. But really any blog where I could be just kind of goofy, even if it was, politics to TV. I think I had a calling for that and I missed it somewhere
Hey,
along the line.
listen, you're still living, so it ain't
You
over yet.
never
I just
know.
like wait till your baby gets to be a little more
Uh,
self-sufficient and then go for that dream. But yeah,
so,
definitely it's still available. It's still out there.
yes.
So, well, tax attorney to me is a fairly fitting role for an Enneagram 6 because there's a lot of rules and code and regimen. And so do you feel like that, your career and also just your day-to-day activities, do you feel like it speaks to an Enneagram 6 wing 5? And what do you think about how that relates?
I do. The more I think about it, the more, I mean, even our division at work is known for kind of taking a long time, and they joke, paralysis by analysis. And I'm like, if that is not a perfectly described 6 job, then I don't know what is. Because I'm perfectly comfortable taking a long time weighing all the options, and there's people in my division that are just like, oh, it takes so long, why can't we just say something and go? And I'm like, because what if we got it wrong? Like, what if we told someone else something else 10 years ago, and then it's just going to be a disaster? And that does really happen. Like, if you're not really careful, you'll tell one taxpayer one thing, and then the facts will seem just different enough that you say something else, and somehow it comes out and the Department of Revenue is treating industries differently, and you make the front page of the news. So like, although it's not exciting, it can be exciting in a really terrible way.
That is such a 6 thing to say.
And I'm also not on the front lines with taxpayers. So I can kind of sit at my desk and do all of this work behind, an invisible shield, which I think plays really into my 5 wing of not having, this abundance of energy. Because as you know, it took me a long time to figure out what number I was.
Yeah.
And
Which is
it
very
wasn't.
typical for 6s, by the way. So.
Oh gosh, am I a 1? Am I an 8? But once I read the 6 wing 5, it's like everything fell into place. And I realized, oh, that's where this like limitation on my energy comes into, and kind
Sure.
of the introversion that I feel on a regular basis. And so, yeah, this job, it's probably perfectly designed for a 6. It might have been created by a 6, to be honest.
I could
But
see that.
And then when I'm like, oh, I want to like get into TV, I'm like, who are you and where's this 7 wing coming from? Because I don't identify
Exactly.
with that at all. So,
No, and you know what? I think there's a time and a space, and you never know. I mean, remind me, I Heart TV, that was a blog before like
yes,
adulting happened, and you had a pretty solid following, right? I mean,
yeah.
you knew some stuff about your TV.
It was
So,
kind of before blogging was like a thing. I was on
yeah.
blogspot.com, not to like age myself too much, I suppose. But yeah, I would just kind of recap shows, and in between checking MySpace and doing a little bit of legal reading, which
MySpace.
a little bit. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's and I've had people ask if they could have the handle, because it doesn't have any numbers, it doesn't have any
It's gold.
underscores, and I'm like, no, I think I'll keep it.
For sure.
I have 3 kids now, and maybe it should have something to do with that. But I still really love my TV, so.
Well, hold the vision. That's all I got to say. So I wanted to talk a little bit about type 6's motivation. And as you know, the type 6 motivation is to be and to stay safe. These motivations are typically developed during childhood. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit to your comfort level about your childhood and what event helped you develop this core motivation of being safe.
Yeah, and that's a tough one, because I really don't want to take away from everything my mom did give to me as a kid. I felt very loved, very secure and safe. It was never like a dangerous childhood by any means. But she was on her own and she had to work a lot. And we weren't always kind of sure where, money and needs were going to come from. And I remember thinking very young that if I stayed in school and I worked really hard, then I would be able to kind of do all the things I wanted to do without worrying about that. So, yeah, as a child, it comes down to, like you could buy toys. But even then, I knew it was bigger than that. It was this ability to kind of provide stability and security and kind of know where everything was going to come from each month. Turns out, even doing all that, you still never know where anything is going to come from. So it's like I did everything they
Hashtag
said.
2020.
I did everything they said, and I still am like, wait, where's all this like safety and security I was promised by following all these rules? But at the same time, it did, and we moved quite a bit. And so I think I did kind of crave a little more predictability and I guess just kind of knowing what was going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny because I'm certain my brother is a 7. I know you're not supposed to type people, but like there's just I would be shocked. And I see a lot of my mom and that too. They're both just very spontaneous, free loving, and then there's this poor little 6 just trying to like have breakfast at the same time every day. It's kind of just, yeah.
So then, I think 2020 has been, a year of a lot of disruption and change. And, it's been very difficult for everyone across the board. I have to think it's a special kind of nightmare for a 6. So this is not a planned question, but I'd love for you to insert into this how you've been faring as an Enneagram 6 wing 5 in a global pandemic.
I think the fallout from this is to come. So as a 6, I've learned that that's a lot of like where the planning and the preparedness comes in. You're always kind of prepared for something like this, I guess. And in chaos, I'm a great person to have around. Like if the kids get hurt, I'm like, I need this, this, and this. Call this person.
Awesome.
While my
great quality
partner is like running around screaming. Half the time I'm calming him down more than I'm calming the kid who's hurt. But then afterwards, when everyone's safe and like kind of just done for the day, I feel sick. Like I want to puke. I'm so nauseous. It's like all my worst nightmares have come true, and I replay it in my head over and over. Like so bad that I want to like I'm like sweaty. And so I feel like when things start going back to normal, I'm going to have this like total crashing moment. And I don't know really what that's going to look like, because I think right now I'm just in this constant state of chaos and digging as deep as I can into learning that, yeah, in some ways I've been prepared for this. In other ways, I'm realizing 2020, the moment you think you have it under control, it's going to throw something new at you. Like we can't even go outside right now because of the wildfires. So it's like all this
I'm so sorry
that we've been able to be outside, but then you're just grateful. Some people are actually losing their homes. So the fact that we have a home to retreat to, it's that type of thing that also brings 6's peace, I think, to realize, and I don't mean this to be callous, but that it could be worse. It really could be worse. And so we kind of dig deep in that and prepare if that's the next step. Mm-hmm. So it is a special hell for us to be in a pandemic where there's no predictability. You never know what's happening next. And but I'm proud of myself. I fared fairly well kind of navigating this. And a shout out to my support. My partner's been great, and our nanny's finally back. So that
Good.
helps.
Lucky you. Yes. And okay, so let's transition from that. You mentioned a few things involving parenting, but how has the Enneagram helped you in motherhood? How has discovering your sixness, your wing five, has that personal development helped you with motherhood?
Yeah, so I mean, as you know, I really got into Enneagram during quarantine. So I had listened to, I don't know, 7,000 murder podcasts and realized that maybe I needed something a little lighter. Especially
Maybe.
as, the news I was listening to as it kind of veered into politics and things got really heavy. I was like, let's find something a little lighter to mix in than, my favorite murder. So I'm not as creepy as that sounds, but my partner thinks it is. So, what are you going to do?
I also
Um,
think it's a law school thing. I mean, a lot of our old peers are so into it, and I'm like, what is up with that?
I thought it would stop when you have kids. Like, what mother sits there and listens to like murder mysteries?
Apparently, a lot of them.
I'm preparing, right? I'm preparing.
That's right.
Hopefully not preparing, but you're not going to catch me unawares in a possible murder situation.
That's good.
But
That'll be handy.
yes. So I started looking into the Enneagram, and I was convinced that I was like, I'm not a two. Like, I don't know why these tests keep telling me a two. I don't identify with this at all. And so I reached out to you and was like, what's going on? There's got to be a better number for me. Turns out I didn't think any of them were really for me because they were all for me. But I started reading it, and what was really helped, especially when I learned about kind of the motivations and what pushes me to do some of the things I do, is realizing, maybe more importantly than anything else, that that's not everyone else's motivations. So when I cannot understand why someone is not worried about this or that or whatever, I'm like, do you not care? Do you not care about us, that you're not worried about this happening? And it's like, no, some people just live in this like other world where you're not preparing for the worst case scenario, where they imagine their kid riding 20 feet to the mailbox on the bike and the kid comes back just fine. Whereas, mine gets hit by a car and bangs its head on the mailbox and he doesn't have a helmet. So, it's worst case scenario. So kind of learning that that's not what drives other people has been really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Also realizing that there's a different way to communicate with other types of people. And this is something, you get in management all the time. You take all these things, like, look at these people, styles of communication, and you're like, well, whatever, like, that's hard. And it's not that it's not still hard, but it hit me in a different way of realizing how different other people can be when it comes to processing information and kind of dealing with their everyday fears and motivations. So that's really helped. And then just kind of being able to lean into some of my worry, like knowing that it's where it's coming from, and also recognizing that it can be controlled a bit, like just a reminder of like, hey, the worst case scenario might not happen. Yes, this is kind of what your fears are. And so that's kind of, I think, how it's really helped is put some of the stuff in perspective. My oldest is 6. I'm nearing 40. There's a lot in me that's kind of just who I am at this point, but it definitely, I think, helps me develop my strengths and where I can be a great addition as a parent, and also the places where I don't want to go. I don't want to go into that unhealthy 3.
Yeah.
And I've spent a lot of time there, and I love my healthy 9 space. So I try to really kind of recognize when maybe I'm showing these characteristics that are showing that I'm maybe in a stressful zone, and seeing where I can kind of pull myself out of that.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, you commented earlier about, in crisis, right? You go into direct operation, you know how to manage it. And that's a stress situation. And there's actually some 3 elements in there of performance that you're pulling from that are really important, because you are on point, and you're ready to operate. So I would say there's some value in that stress number as well that really comes through when you're getting hit with the worst case scenario. And a 3 also, after they get hit hard with trauma or anything like that, the shock doesn't hit them until later on. And so I feel like I'm hearing some of that stress number a little bit in your experience. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah, I would. And it's funny you say that because I think I was the same way when I was in litigation as a lawyer. If the judge was just being unreasonable, it's like I became this whole other like confident person at the podium.
Yeah.
And I was like, gosh, that was a great performance. But afterwards I was like, can I like go cry maybe? I don't know if it was really cute. Maybe I just have to pee really bad. I don't know. But like, it was
I'm dizzy.
You're like so proud of yourself, but really like it was a negative body feeling, but in your head you're like, I rocked that. Like that judge should not have been pushing like that.
That's a great call out. And I think, I mean, that makes total sense. So as we kind of wrap up this interview, I would love to know, sixes, like you said, like there's some really great strengths with sixes. And I'd love to hear from you some parenting secrets or tips and tricks that really tap into your sixness that you could share that you think could help moms, across the board, just from your Enneagram strengths.
Yeah, I mean, I think the worry that I have is shared by a lot of parents, especially mothers. So I think on some level that's definitely not unique to a 6. And what helps relieve some of that is being kind of as prepared as you can for regular things. So I do like to have, a bag of, things that are always coming with me in the car. So I know that if she falls and skins her knees, there's a Band-Aid. Because if there's not a Band-Aid, it doesn't matter how big the scratch is, it is the most devastating thing.
Right. So
kind of just learning your child and kind of preparing for their like biggest needs. And then, school started on Monday and it was maybe one of the worst days of my life. I've joked about crying a lot in this, but I really don't cry that often out of stress or sadness or anything like that. And I sat at my desk and just cried because I'm like, there's no way I can do this. I cannot work and help her through a full day of school because my child needs a lot of guidance. She's not necessarily going to sit down and follow her computer all day. And so I was trying to like be here and there all day long. So pretty much nothing got done. She had no support. My work, I'll be behind all week because I did almost nothing on Monday. And so I regrouped and I put together a schedule and I took an hour off of work at 2 different times, so 2 hours total. And that allowed me to completely dedicate these hours to her. I just said, whatever we get done in that part is all we're getting done for, the school day. And then we'll catch up in the evening or on the weekends. And then, I had all this other time to work. I had to extend my day by an hour and I no longer have a lunch hour. But, the day went great. We got everything done. I got to know a lot about her during school. And then I recognize there's also some privilege in that I have the help with my 2 little ones and my work is super flexible. But I think kind of looking at all the possibilities, like really trying to get creative in what you can do to fix like whatever's going on. I think that is my most prized sixness trait is, yes, it can kind of paralyze you into indecision, but it also gives you a really good sense of what your next steps could be to try out so that you kind of don't lose that hope. Because even if this doesn't work, I'm already thinking like, well, if this doesn't work, what are we going to do next? So that's not the good part. It's like, let's focus on the good part that it worked yesterday and we're looking forward to it. So I think, kind of being able to provide schedules and structure and a to-do list, and charts, things like that, they really help us. I know they're not for every family and they're certainly not for every kid. But to provide that predictability and structure where I can, I think the kids really benefit from it.
Well, and I think that's really sound advice and definitely speaks to your strengths as a six. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I would acknowledge a collective. You're not alone in school starting, whether your kids are virtual or going back or whatever it is. It's just complicated. And a shout out to all the parents and teachers for sure. We're all doing our best to try to, figure this out. So I think those are great recommendations. I'm really happy they're working for you. And I'm hopeful that this is speaking to some people that needed to hear it and is helping them figure out what they need to do. It's a challenging time. So
And
thank you
if
for
not, I
offering
have
that.
some good murder mysteries.
And there's murder therapy with podcasts. So anyway, well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Thanks for getting up at the butt crack and out in Seattle or Olympia to do this.
I know, I'm like, what am I going to do today now that my hair's done and I have makeup on? Like, I can't waste this in the office all
Girl,
day.
go get you a coffee. There's got to be Starbucks out there, right?
I'm going to walk to the mailbox. Like, I don't know. I'm going to do something fancy.
Well, thank you again. And this was an amazing interview. And I'm so happy that you were the first. And I appreciate that. And I love that my first week is sixes. That's very fitting because I know y'all don't want to worry about this for too long. You need to get it over with. So, yes. So thanks again, Jeannette. And I really, really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Whitney.
All right. Take care.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. Again, thank you to Jeannette Gute. That was a fantastic interview. Please enjoy the display of cleaning product above my office. I wanted to let you know that Don Borntrager is going to be live with us on Friday morning at 9 a.m. for another six interview, Enneagram Mom interview. She's got both wings, which is going to be exciting to talk about, and she's a counter type. So that's going to be an awesome interview. And then again, a special thank you to Grateful Grams for sponsoring this interview. You can enter a secret code WEMOM, WE-MOM, on the website for a 15% discount on your order. And I will do a drawing later today for somebody who commented on this feed to win a pack of Grateful Grams. So until Friday, I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining me.